Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At Turnkey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, Turnkey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. Turnkey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact.
And now, broadcasting from the hatchback of a 72 Ford Pinto, broadcasting from a secret bunker underneath Fort McHenry, broadcasting from the abandoned food court at the White Flint Mall, broadcasting live from their mother's basement, broadcasting from no closer than 100 yards from their court-mandated distance from Tim Ferriss, broadcasting from the back room of El Pollo Hermanos. It's Los Chicos de Niza por Negocios. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, today we're diving into the three real journeys of three real podcasters and what it takes to hit the top ranks in podcasting from the beginning, the messy middle, and where it can actually take you. I'm joined by three podcast hosts who each bring a different lens to the mic. Debi Ronca, she explores life's transitions and the personal growth that comes from them. Phil Fornaro uncovers the mindset shifts and light bulb moments that move people forward in business and life. And Dean Newlund, he explores leadership by closing the gap between intention and experience. Now, whether you're thinking about launching a podcast or trying to figure out what yours should become, this conversation is about the journey, it's about the intention, and what it really takes to make a show matter. Let's dive in. Debi, Phil, Dean, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, great to be here.
Hello, Doug.
Now that's about as prepared as I can possibly be, just to write the intro and then have the messy conversation after that. So the reason, just so everybody in our community or communities, because I'm going to launch this on a couple of different podcasts that we have, I want to share with them, where we are today. And, if you're listening to this podcast, never compare, your beginning to someone else's middle. So if you're just getting podcasting right now, Dean and Debi and Phil have been at this a while. Let me just share a little bit of stats that I have. Lead Ovation Dean Show. He's ranked in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally, 300 plus episodes. And he's been doing this since May of 2020, I think. Debi with Transition Bridge Podcast, she ranks in the top 5%, 225 plus episodes. She started in November of 2021 or somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And Phil Fornaro, light bulb moments, the baby in the group. He's been at this, but he's catching up with you guys. He's at 185 plus episodes, ranked in the top 2%. He is the star child since May of 2024. So all incredible stats. And that's exactly why I wanted to have you guys, because you all had a different beginning than each other. So welcome, guys. I'm excited to chat with you. So who wants to be the first outspoken one? You guys just take a shot at it. Has your podcast given you what you want it to be? Honest answers are totally fine. Has the podcast given you what you wanted it to give you from the very beginning, or is it completely changed from where you thought it was going to be from the start? Any one of you can pick that answer.
So I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
Dude.
No, you go. Rock, paper, scissors. You won.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Someone was going to jump in. So, I gave my guests an option one time, and it blew up in my face because they didn't know what to do. So that was the last time I did that. So when I started, I had no expectations. I never even listened to a podcast, as you know, Doug, and I was trying to figure out, I had this this gap in my life, and, my wife says it was a midlife crisis of some sort. And I couldn't fill the gap no matter what. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's give this a this podcasting I tried. Someone I can't even remember who it is. This is I remember everything. I can't remember the person, which would drive me crazy. At some point, I'll figure it out. And I had no expectation. I just knew a lot of people, and I go, yeah, let's just give it a roll, see what it is. I have a lot of content in my head, and I thought I had a specific place to go with entrepreneurs and business people. But then all of a sudden it started developing and evolving into something completely else. And it was a chat GPT probably about 30 to 60 days ago when I said, depending on when this is on, I go, what is this podcast? There can't be all these, in my podcast about light bulb moments, it can't be an unlimited amount of light bulb moments. And of course, chat goes, as it always does for me, because I'm a lunatic. My brain constantly flows content. It goes, yeah, stupid. It didn't say stupid, but it said, yeah, guess what? Here's what you're doing. You're creating these perspective shifts for people. That's why it's patterning away from entrepreneurs and just young people, middle age and older people are now listening to it because of that. So, great joy, it gives me joy every single day. Val, my assistant and driver of Light Bulb Moments, always says that if I'm having a bad day, she just looks at me and goes, well, just go do a podcast, Phil, and that's been driving me into a positive way. So that's me, man.
Your mood definitely shifts when I know that you've done either a solo podcast or you've had this great interview. And normally your interviews can be marathons. And I know you have a studio that you work in sometimes too, but you definitely shift your personality, your where you are, your vibe when you are doing a podcast, which is pretty cool.
You're saying that I'm not that interesting outside the podcast world?
I have to say, you were probably one of my toughest early on clients. And I said to Strickland a number of times early on within the first month, I'm like, I think he's going to fire us any moment now. I think he's gonna, or then Strickland said, you know what? I think we should fire him.
Yeah. I even asked you, remember? I said, you ready to fire me? Maybe I'm not the guy for you, but we became the people for each other. It's been fantastic. The road with you, man, has been tremendous.
Well, they say the teacher will appear when the student is ready, and I needed a client like you to kind of get me thinking harder rather than just templated. Okay, here's a templated launch. So you kind of helped us, create a bunch of new systems and a bunch of new things in our process. So thank you for that, Phil.
See, that's the light bulb moment of the episode already. I didn't know.
Drop the mic. We're done.
Thanks, Doug.
Dean, what were you going to say about the beginning?
Gee whiz, I think when we first started this, we came off of a pretty tough business situation where we had somebody on our team do something really wrong and we lost a huge client. And so I was really in a kind of the dumps at that time. And I luckily got into a TEDx experience here in Bend, Oregon. And that was a real shot in the arm. And after that, I decided, let's keep this conversation going. Back then, the conversation was all about the business of intuition. And it went over pretty well. And I decided, let's continue that momentum from the TEDx talk and do a podcast. And so now this sort of dark space that I was in at that time started to build momentum because I realized I had content even when I felt like I didn't. Because I've always been a kind of a consummate coach and facilitator, and the content is always out there in other people, and I'm here to draw it out. That's always been my one of my skills, I suppose. But I've never really, up until having a podcast, felt like I had something to say or I had a point of view. And so the podcast was, in a sense, a way to explore what that point of view was. And so at the very beginning, just getting the damn thing up and running and making sure that I had a show every week. Hey, Mom, what are you doing? You're going to be on my podcast. I mean, it was literally, that was my biggest stressors. Do I have enough people to be on the podcast?
Oh, my God.
And one of the things that, Doug, you're going to get a lot of like pats on the back on this, I'm sure, but I interviewed a variety of people. Park Howell told me to talk to you. He was one of your clients for a while. He's got a very popular podcast that's been going on for, I think, 8 years. He's just killing it. He said, yeah, you got to talk to Doug and Strick because they really know their stuff and they're great guys. And you are a great guy. You're a great friend. And we've actually hung out a little bit together, dressed up in tuxes in a gala over in Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago for Goodwill. But so the beginning, my interest was really just to see if I could do it and to kind of build some momentum. And what's happened since then, it's gone through so many different iterations, which we can talk about more, but In the beginning, it was to keep it going. Can I learn something from it? And what I discovered early on was I was learning so much from other people, the guests that were coming on. It just blew me away. It was like getting 3 or 4 different MBAs in the process of a couple of years. So the connections that I've made, we now have a person on our team who now works with us, done great work. She was a podcast guest, so we've made connections. I was a guy that I was talking to once, and I said, you got this really interesting, accent. Where are you from? And he goes, well, I'm from England. And I said, well, where in England are you from? And he goes, well, I live in the Cotswolds. And I said, no kidding. He says, we're going to be in the Cotswolds in 6 months. And he goes, well, why don't you come by for a cup of tea? So he decided he's just being friendly, right? Because most people say those kind of things and don't really mean it. And then I emailed him like about a month before our trip. He says, no, please stop by. Not only did we come by for a cup of tea, he found that it was my wife's birthday.
Oh my God.
They made an entire dinner, big cake. I mean, we kind of became friends. We almost went into business together. So the connections that you make on podcasts and the things you learn have been phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Oh, excellent. I appreciate that answer. And I agree with you, Dean. The hidden gift for me in podcasting definitely has been the connections that I've made through that guest seat. I love my audience, and my audience is great, and we have a lot of great fans and people that listen to the show and comment and leave voicemails for us. But I have to tell you, we have gotten so many of the 1,700 plus episodes that we have done, 1,000 or so of which that have been interview episodes. We have a couple hundred connections that we've made that will last a lifetime, and they've been great connections. Great connections. So, Debi, you're in the world of transition, and everybody goes through transition at a point in their life. And you have such a great, and I've listened to many episodes of your show. You have such a great eclectic audience. I mean, everybody that's an executive going through transitional points to a person that just has personal relationship transitions that they're going through. How do you kind of bring a point to all of that stuff, because you have such a diverse audience, such a diverse guest list that you're pulling from? How does that work for you?
One of the things for me is important to stay to the vision of my podcast. And the vision of it is the stories of transition. Our lives are a story of transition. So that opens up this vast door and lane of story, because there's such a variety of transitions in life. I've had people who have been a burn victim when they were in middle school and came out of that and became a coach and mentors young men, and now is an international speaker going around the world, inspiring others that they could do it as well. So you have something like that. I've had someone from Hollywood who left the Hollywood scene and has now become an author and has written her book. And so everybody's transitioning, everybody's moving into different seasons and new directions. And it seems like it's endless, because people just come and they have these amazing stories that, as we listen to it, I think we all get inspired about how much more we can do if someone like that can do this. I've had a blind athlete come on. He actually is a Paralympic champion and has competed in Japan in the Olympics. And I remember when he first came on the show, I asked him how he was doing, and he said, well, I'm just a little sore right now. I just got done doing a 20-mile run. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I just get inspired by these people who are resilient and have incredible transition stories.
Debi, when you first started podcasting, think about, again, we're going back, how many years ago? Back to 2021, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you first started, what was your goal for the show, if you recall, and how much of that has evolved, or has it stayed the same from your very first episode?
My beginning is so interesting, because I was in a mastermind group. I was in the mastermind group as a life transition coach. And every Friday, people around the nation, we gather to, bring each other higher, share our wins, our losses. And in one particular session, one of the gentlemen in the group said, hey, Debi, have you ever considered podcasting? And just that question made me pause, ponder, and think, I like to talk. I think maybe I would like to do that. I never thought about it. So it actually was someone else's idea and encouragement. And so I always like to challenge myself. And then, Doug, I found your class. I took that 4-week class to learn how to do it well, the kind of mics to do, how to set up everything. And my commitment was, okay, like everyone else has shared, who's going to be on my podcast? Yeah. So I went right into my mastermind group and said, every one of you are going to be on this podcast, because I could see all of their transitions. And then it just became the realization that I have something to speak about. So I took what I know about life coaching and how I help women in the different seasons and the directions of their life. So there are times that I come on and use the podcast as my platform to give information, to maybe teach about a specific topic, maybe the mindsets that we have in times of transition or the trauma that we go through. And so I've also learned to use that to give myself a voice as well as my guests.
So, Dean, I think about as you got started with your podcast, originally called The Business of Intuition and then evolved to Leadovation. I think about, that when we come into podcasting, we have a certain forecast of what we think that we're going to do with our show, but it evolves just like our goals evolve. What made you make the transition from the Business of Intuition to Leadovation? Did your goals change, or did you change, or just maybe your outlook change? What was it that made you think differently about your podcast?
It totally was the goals that changed, because I think in the very beginning with the Business of Intuition, it was really just getting confident about the process and creating great connections and learning how to be a good interviewer and to be able to make that work. After that, we started to shift our approach to wanting to have the business eventually have a book, which I'm writing right now, to getting into more public speaking, which is also part of the plan. And so we wanted the podcast name to more reflect that greater vision versus it being more narrow towards just intuition in business. So it changed because our business changed and my outlook changed. We're now going through another phase. I mean, you've been a part of my emails back and forth just to be able to really tighten up about how do we expand our audience? How do we get our guests to be ambassadors of the show? We never did that in the beginning, and we were just happy to be able to have somebody on the show every week, But now it's getting much more sophisticated, and the consistency and the technology, all of that stuff is just getting better and better. But to answer to your question, it's because our goals changed.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality of just life. I mean, don't we always change our goals in life?
Back to transitions, as Debbie was saying, right?
I remember
Right.
11 years ago, I when I started the show because I had a book that I was just promoting, and I didn't have enough money to hire a publicist. So I said to Strick, hey, let's start a podcast. Could you help me by doing the technical side? And he's like, sure. I don't listen to podcasts. And at that time, the only one I had listened to was Serial. So that was a very cool podcast, but not a, it's a fictitious. Well, I guess they're real podcasts, but it's a whole different world. So I'm like, oh, I can do this too. Phil, one of the things that I remember when you first got started, and you're a lawyer and you're outside general counsel for a lot of big companies that are out there, and you have an entire practice that's behind you. You're one of a very few clients that we have whose podcast message isn't directly connected to their business. What made you think about that as your goal? I mean, basically, when I met you, you said, look, I love my practice, my firm, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for a whole different thing. But it feels like even though your intention was not to benefit your firm, it feels like you have gotten benefit to your firm as a result of the connections that you're making, or maybe expanding from there. So can you share why you started a podcast that wasn't connected to your business, and maybe how those goals have evolved over the last, year or 2 years almost since you've been starting the podcast?
Yeah, it seems silly, right? I operate for at the time 28 years as a lawyer, and I say, yeah, let's talk about something else entirely. How dumb is that? So but there are a lot of legal podcasts, and I could have done that, but it's not necessarily the law that drives me. I love being a lawyer. I love the connections. Everything that I've done in my life has been a result of me being a lawyer because of the connections. But what I realize is that there's something else inside me, this this ability to connect people and find alignment where there otherwise was an alignment, or where people don't even realize the alignment. And when I first started to shift into the mindset here is that, and we talked about it in our opening episode, when you interviewed me on number one of Light Bulb Moments. It was this inspiration from Tina Rounds, who's been on our episode, where she, gave me this award. Everybody gets awards for something, community, but it didn't really, it was really interesting. It wasn't the fact that I was receiving an award. It was the fact that how I impacted or affected her. And so what happened is that moment, my mind just exploded. And what Light Bulb Moments has become as a result of me shifting and building into what is authentically me. And this is for all podcasters that anywhere that start out or are in the middle of it. The more authentic you are with your podcast or how you operate inside of you, the more the easier it is to connect with people, throughout the world. And that's why I had to fill that void, and that was the void that I filled. And as a result of it, it's expanded out to all these people. And I got a call the other day. Just one quick story, Doug. One of my very good friends here locally called me. He was so excited. He goes, Phil, I got to tell you this, guy. I'm on a Zoom with a client. He goes, no, I got to tell you. I'll give me like 10 minutes. I'll call you back. And so I did. It was like 20 minutes. He goes, listen, man, I'm doing this big deal, and I don't want to, bring up what the deal was about. But he says, I'm talking to this guy, and he's telling stuff about me. And he goes, well, how do you know this? Well, I heard you on a podcast, and the guy's in Singapore. Wow. And now these two people are going to do deals together. And it's not, and again, I don't care about the fact that it just makes me feel good that it has an ultra purpose, which I cannot achieve with the law, Doug. I can do great things for our clients. I can connect them, but that feeling that I got when he called, that's not replaceable through any other avenue other than Light Bulb Moments.
Oh, nice. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I feel like the doors have opened so wide with so many of the episodes that I've done, whether it's interviewing an A-lister like a Gary Vee or Ariana Huffington, or a normal person like you and me. I have these great calls, and I could never touch the A-listers had I not had the podcast. And I have their publicists that call us now and say, hey, I want X in your guest seat. Would you be open to that? It's like, would I be open to that? Hell yeah, I'd be open to that.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? For sure. I open this up to all you guys. Feel free to any of you answer the question. But is there something about podcasting that you misunderstood or you didn't realize when you first got started that you're now like, oh my gosh, why didn't I realize that when I first got started in this game?
I think when you first start, you don't realize how much work it really is. But it's good work. I enjoy it. But to be a podcaster, it just doesn't happen. You have to be intentional about the guests that you have on. You have to plan to make sure you have guests coming in every week. I realized when I first started, I was excited. And then I realized, wow, I have to be intentional every week, be planning ahead, because I wanted it to be a success. And I enjoy the work, but just don't step into podcasting thinking, well, this will be easy and I'm just going to get on every week and it's going to happen. There's intention to it.
Cool. Dean, what were you going to say?
Well, I think the thing that I was going to tell you was that I have always thought that this was going to be a way to be able to quickly get new clients. And we have. I mean, there has been no question about it. We did a kind of a financial analysis about all of our marketing recently and trying to attach every spend to some sort of outcome. And we came up with a podcast, like how much do we spend on it per month? And with all the support that we have to be able to make it happen, and can we actually track it back to new business? And I said, well, we can't really. But what we're doing is we're doing goodwill. We're connecting to people. It is part of keeping the lights on. It is part of making sure that we seem credible to our current clients and to people who we haven't even met yet. I have people all the time saying, yeah, I heard your podcast. I've never even met them yet. So there's it's an invisible kind of influence that you have that you don't know that you have. that it's hard to monetize. There are ways to monetize it, and we're going to get better at it. And Doug, you've been very helpful for that. But that was the original thought, like we're going to monetize the heck out of this. It didn't really happen. But then we realized we're seeing so many benefits that can't be addressed from a dollars and cents perspective that is extremely valuable. We started this right before COVID. And so this was our lights on activity. This is that says, hey, we're not dead yet. All the other organizations out there that were going under and eventually becoming coaches because they no longer had a job. We were still there. And the podcast told current clients and new clients, we are still here. We're doubling down. I remember a conversation we had with my COO, and she said, maybe we should cut back on our marketing. I said, nope, we're not. We're going to continue doing marketing because it's going to continue to tell people that we're still here. And it was a good decision.
Nice. And Phil, what did you misunderstand about the beginning stages that you might know now? And look, you have 185 plus episodes. You've been doing this just for, under 2 years now. So 185 episodes. So you're going at a pretty big pace. I mean, you're 2 episodes a week right now. You're doing your light bulb moment. He's doing the work.
He is going to catch up very quickly.
Very quickly. What did you misunderstand about that in the very beginning?
It's kind of odd here is that I always deal in friction in my life and getting through friction. This has been frictionless. It's just so weird, because I've got great people supporting me. Hiring people has been easy. But I didn't come in with any preconceived notion of, and I think this is important for all the podcasters that are just starting out, is that if you're immediately thinking about monetization, we've talked about this, Doug, and you're immediately not understanding what you're doing as it relates to that, and looking for that instant gratification, it's hard. It really is hard to get into that flow. If you don't put the pressure on yourself, it ends up growing, organically. And I really, this is the only time in my life I needed an idea where I had someone like you, Doug, to stabilize us, right? And do everything. When you said turnkey, and it was funny, I know we've talked about this before, but maybe these people was like, when you asked me, what are you trying to do here? I go, I don't know. You want to monetize it? Nah, not really. Do you have a plan or goals?
It's not like you can't hit a moving target. You can't hit a no target at all. If there's no target out there, how do we know when we get there? It wasn't a moving target. There was no target.
Yeah, none at all. And it's like, Strick, maybe he was right on now that I think about it. So when you think about it that way, and you're sort of giving yourself to it, it's like, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I can't give my content. But if I have someone like you with turnkey, and Val said it when we first started, we talked for whatever, like 30 minutes, and I go, yeah, let's sign up. And she goes, are you insane?
Yeah, I remember that. I said, take your time. This is too fast. This is too fast.
No, and it for me, I can't pull triggers like that. But it was just the right thing. Is you offered a frictionless ability for us to move to the next step, right? Is that I don't have to do anything related to production. It's awesome, and Valerie is awesome, and our marketing team is awesome. Mm-hmm. So I guess to reflect on it is if you're doing something that you love, then maybe there's no problems. Although here's one little fun thing, and in my normal older days, you'll enjoy this. So we check, and we've got a couple new marketing people. They go, oh, yeah, how many subscribers do you have? I go, I don't know. How many subscribers? So apparently we didn't flip a switch. So that what was formerly gold, we have no subscribers. We've got 5 subscribers, and we have all this thing. On Apple, it's okay and stuff like that. But it's okay. We learn from it. But maybe check your subscribers before you started.
I don't even know what that is. But maybe you'll have to clue us in as we start to figure that stuff out. I don't know. I mean, I know my analytics, but how do you know how many subscribers that you have?
So this is the goal, and I'll back off. So on your website, you get the subscribers, right? People subscribe, and then they get whatever content you're producing. But you have to link it to your website in order for it to happen. That nothing to do with turnkey. That's all internal. This is all on us.
What did I do wrong? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I should know this kind of stuff.
No, nothing to do with you. But it's a result of it. It's okay. Now we learn. I mean, it's just setting it up the right way and making sure you understand it. And it's okay. We're going to make mistakes. I think that's the key thing in life. This is the key component. You make your mistakes, you laugh it off, and you dive into the next thing.
Over the course of the last 11 plus years that Strick and I have been doing the show, I don't remember. I think maybe we're the albatross here, but I don't remember a time where I ever thought I'm just not going to do this anymore. We didn't have specific goals that we wanted for our show. Originally, it was to promote the book, and then it became to promote Turnkey, and then it became it doesn't really matter what we're getting from the show. We're making some great connections. That stuff, that messy middle where a lot of people decide, I don't know, should I actually do this? Did you guys experience a messy middle at any point? I know, Phil, you're newer, so I don't know that you've experienced it yet, or maybe you'll never experience it. Did you guys ever experience a messy middle? And then how did you get beyond that? Because there may be some podcasters that are, I've done my 50 episodes. I'm not seeing the results I want. I'm gonna quit. So talk about that for a second, Dean.
No real messy middle, but I will say that you have to enjoy this process. I think to Phil's point, if you love this kind of interaction that we have here, you can do it and not get paid and nothing comes from it. And if you can walk away feeling good about it, I think that's great. To me, the success of this podcast is really measured in each individual interview. And some of them are better than others, Some of them you got to work harder to get people to talk more. Some of them people talk too much and you have to pull them in. But the quality of that space, to me, it's interesting because during this arc that I've been doing this podcast, AI and ChatGPT and all of that really became online. And then Vivek Murthy, the outgoing Surgeon General, wrote a book called had to do with loneliness and isolation as being an epidemic in our United States. And it's equivalent to like 15 cigarettes a day, the kind of loneliness that people are feeling right now, and it's having a real deleterious effect on not only their mental health but their physical health. Well, podcasting is a way to connect people. It's a way of creating community across cyberspace. And so for me to be able to provide a platform and to connect with people, not only just for my sake, but for the sake of others who are listening and for my guests, seems to be kind of an antidote towards this AI revolution that is dehumanizing our interactions. And so podcast is a human interaction. Yes, we use AI to be able to create our show notes and all that kind of stuff. And thank God, because it made it a lot more productive. But it is one of those human things that we do that I really think is important now more than ever.
Debbie, you've been one of our most quiet behind the scenes clients over the years. I don't know if you feel like you ever maybe I should ask a question and then you don't ask the question for fear of I don't know what, but because I love having conversations. But you are very behind the scenes, and then I start looking at your numbers as I have look at all of my clients' numbers, eventually, and I see. Oh, she's in the top 10%. Oh, she's in the top 7%. Oh, she's in the top 5%. And I keep thinking, did she ever experience a messy middle? Did you ever experience a messy middle, Debbie?
I think when you first start, you get to the point and you wonder if you're making a difference, kind of like what you were referring to, Dean. You're looking at the time, the commitment, and you're wondering, do I have an impact? And you start to consider, maybe I should stop. And then you have that one episode where somebody comes on and you just realized you were either changed or just that episode for that person, or you hear someone say, I heard this episode on your podcast and I shared it with someone who needed that. And then you realize you're a gift. You are a life giver to people out there that need to hear what's on your podcast. And then you get inspired again. And I don't see me ever stopping, because now I see impact on people's lives because of what is being shared in the conversation. Oh gosh, it's the best.
It is the best when you make an impact, and notwithstanding your audience. So yes, I'm sure you're making an impact with everybody here is making, as well as many podcasters are making an impact with their audience. But the ones that you can see, the easiest ones to see, are just the people sitting in that guest seat. That's the beauty. I think that of the three of you, more so than many, many, many other clients, again, this was part of my process in picking who do I want to have sit in this guest seat and share their message today. One of the things that I don't know that you guys have ever, at least I've never seen it, been challenged with content creation, you guys have been consistently ahead of the game. Dean, man, there was a point where you were, I don't know, 6 months ahead of with your content or something crazy like that. Phil, same
We had to
thing with
stop.
you.
Yeah.
I know. I
Yeah.
know you had to cut I think I may have even said to you, hey, no extra cost. Can I just start releasing some of these other episodes as a bonus second episode a week?
Yeah.
And Phil, same thing. You create, and Debbie, same with you. You guys have been I don't know that my team has ever had to reach out to you to say, hey, you guys have an episode this week? It's Tuesday. It's coming out on Thursday. How do you
Yeah.
stay as consistent as you do in the process? Any of you guys can take that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, the key to the whole thing is why would you want to put unnecessary pressure on yourself, right? So when we started the podcast, I said, hey, when do you want to release it? I think we started working on it in April. I said, well, I need to get some episodes under my belt, and that was your recommendation. Is let's get moving forward, and having a little of a cushion.
Mm-hmm.
But then that made a lot of sense is to have a cushion always. And what's the downside? I have to do more podcasts. Well, sounds good to me. So
Right.
that's how it worked. And then doing the shorter episodes when I heard a couple short ones, and we've talked about this back and forth. That's the beautiful thing about working with you, Doug, is that we back and forth ideas. Originally we're talking about time, should be 45 minutes, should be an hour. Should I do a shorter one? Then we just tried it, but now it's really cool. I can just sit on a Saturday and just crank out 4 or 5, and of the solo cast. So it's just really, really a nice way to protect it. And if you like what you're doing, who cares? Whether you're 6 months ahead or 10 months ahead. So
Agreed. And there was a point where we were probably 5 or 6 months ahead of the game, and I felt like, geez, I took 3 months off of doing interviews. And then when I jumped back into the interviews, it felt really good to get back into them. It's kind of like that rejuvenated me, getting that new fresh blood into the guest seat. Debbie, how have you stayed consistent over the last, handful of years in doing your show?
Gosh, that was the very first thing I said to myself, Doug, when I started. If I'm not consistent, it won't work. I didn't want to be the kind of podcaster that came in and say, okay, I'm going to take off a month and then come back. And I just knew consistency was the key.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I learned as a mistake is I was only doing one podcast a week, one episode. And then when a guest would get sick and cancel at the last minute, and sometimes they would wait until 2 hours before the episode, then I'm stuck.
Right.
And so then I am backpedaling and I'm looking for things that I could speak about and putting something together so I can get it to the team. So I would say the mistake is don't just have one episode, one guest in your pipeline, have several. And so I've moved to having, now I'm behind what you guys are doing, but I'll probably have maybe 3 or 4 in my pipeline and just get them recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody cancels, it's okay, because I have more in my pipeline. And then again, I still use it as a platform for me to speak. And I make mine really short. Mine might be 15 minutes when I come on, because it's just me and I'm speaking on a topic. But yeah, consistency is the key. Get more episodes in your funnel so you don't fall behind and panic.
Yeah, and Dean, more so than any of our clients through all of the years. I mean, you were consistently many, many months ahead. I'd look at your production schedule on Monday.com and I would be like, holy crap, he's got, and he's got, like, in the pipeline, I can see his future interviews that haven't been booked yet. He's got 30 of them lined up in there. I'm like, you were telling clients that would be interviewed in January, hey, look, you're coming out in August. Just,
it was a little embarrassing at one point. It was like, it was like, hey, we had a great show, and it's in July, and when is it going out? February of next year. It's like, it became like, that's not good. We gotta modulate this. But in the beginning, create a names list of people that you want on your podcast and actively go out and seek them. That's how we started this. Once in a while, I will go and try to find somebody that I really want on the show. Chip Conley wrote a bunch of books, Modern Elder Academy. Deb, you would probably really like this guy based on transitions, because he's about transitioning into midlife transitions. He'd be a great guest. But I saw him at Harvard. He gave a great speech. I asked him to be on the podcast. He said, I'm too busy. We started a whole conversation over email. For some reason, he gave his email out to 800 people. And then finally, he decided to get on the podcast, and it was one of the best episodes we ever had. So at some point, I noticed something happens, and it's like all the brokers start to see the data that Doug is talking about, and then they're coming to you. And so right now, we're not having to go out and find anybody. They're coming to us, which is a great problem to have. We probably have 10 to 15 requests a week. And so now we're at that point where we're having to get much clear about who we want on, who we don't, making it more difficult for them, making sure that they rate and review the show before we even consider them. All those sort of things that we never did before, we're now doing. So now the quality of the guest is getting better. They have bigger audiences, and that's where we're at now.
Oh, yeah, and just a note to those that are in our listening audience, keep in mind that you own a media company. I think I said this to you in my
Yes,
last email to you, Dean. I know I've said this ad nauseum to all of our clients. We own a media company. We need to set some boundaries for what we qualify guests at. And if you don't have rules, specific rules, and use it as a carrot to get people to do the rules before you give them your schedule link. Once you have a guest sit in your guest seat and you ask them to leave a rating and review after you've done the interview, very low probability. You want them to do it, but if you ask them before, here are my 4 rules. Rule number 1, you got to subscribe to the podcast and listen to an episode so you can hear our tone. Number 2, you've got to have a microphone, USB, plug and play, no earbuds. Nowadays, I kind of lax that one a little bit because Zoom's got some really good quality. You got to rate and review the podcast. If you've done 600 interviews, or if you've done 200 or 100 interviews, you should have 100 reviews, because everybody that is sitting in your guest seat should be reviewing your podcast. And if they're not, then you haven't established yourself as a media company yet. And then I always tell people, what is your plan to promote this after this episode is published? Because without you, this breaks down. I have my community and I can share your message with my community, but I want to share my message with your community. And why wouldn't you want to help me do that as well if you're sitting in my guest seat? So I really love to emphasize that. And Dean, I sorry for taking that velvet off the sledgehammer in my last series of
It was
emails.
good. I loved it.
But I'm like, first you told me you had too many guests, and then you said we're not going to have enough guests if we start putting these barriers on. Fuck it, have the barriers.
Correct.
Please,
exactly.
Have
it was
the barriers.
perfect.
So I want to talk about your secret sauce for a second, everybody, and I want you to share what in your workflow do you think is your secret sauce, where it allows you to show up as often as you do, as consistently as you do, for as long as you have. So secret sauce in your workflow process, anybody?
So secret sauce as it relates to the workflow of start to finish, so to speak, anything.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the key is making sure that you have some sort of structure in terms of reaching out and intaking them and putting them in schedule them. We haven't switched to the technology yet. Everything else is technology wise, and you have a great system, Doug. Val has a nice soft touch in terms of interacting with people, so that really helps. And getting team members that you can delegate to, that's been huge. Me not having to post on social media or dive into any of the documents necessary to go out to people, and then working with you, of course, is the top of the tier in the workflow. We know we have consistency when we have issues. We talk about them and make them better. So that's pretty huge. And just every single time that I'm in a conversation, it's so funny, I get involved in these like very serious conversations, but just having the microphone, no one wants to talk about legal. They want to talk about, what does your microphone do that? Are you a podcaster? And it really sort of is always my top of mind. It's always, we talk about stuff and then we start getting comfortable. And I go, but my real passion is my podcast. Oh, you have a podcast. So always having it into your discussions, not as an elevator pitch, because if you love it, then talk about it. I mean, I think that's my secret sauce, is making sure that that's the case.
Nice. Debbie, how about for you? Secret sauce in your workflow or your process?
Yeah, well, the big thing for me is I want to really know my guests before they come on. And now media is reaching out, and it's great. And it's wonderful as a podcaster to have the courage to say, no, that guest won't work. Always stay in alignment with your vision of your podcast, because not every guest will work, and you want it to be a positive for them as well as yourself. So I really study my guests. By studying, I make sure I go to their websites. I see their media sheets, but I go to the website because I want to hear their heart. I want to see the specifics that they're doing, what they're doing for other clients, whatever realm, whatever lane they're walking in. And what that does when the guest comes on, I know about them.
Mm.
I know what their reviews have been about them. I can bring that up. I make sure that the guest feels seen and heard, and they know that I know them. Because by the time we get done the episode and I hit, we're done recording, they always sit back and say, I loved this. Oh my gosh, you listened to me. You knew what was going on. And we just have these great conversations. So I think to getting more guests and keeping your audience interested, I always put questions together, but I don't lean on them. They're there for a reference in case maybe my guest kind of goes quiet. I have something to pull on to keep going, but I don't stay question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a framework if I need it, but I try to get into the organic part of the conversation. I had a doctor on one time, and when we got done, he said, Debbie, you are one of the few podcast hosts that listen to me. He said there are times where they're so focused on asking the next question that they're not listening to what I'm saying. And he said, I actually answered the question. They answered me. I mean, they asked me the next question. I had already answered and they didn't realize it. So it's so important to be like in the conversation with the person and not be so concerned about what you're going to ask next.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, if you have your list of 10 questions that you got to get to come hell or high water, you're going to miss some of the best part of the conversation by responding based upon the answer to the question that you just asked to your guest. Dean, I want to maybe just share that I feel like your secret sauce, and again, you can just completely correct me if I don't hit it here. Your team is incredible. Between Naisha and Luis and your entire marketing effort and your internal team, it seems like you really do have a chance to be, I know you run the whole thing, but you are like the anchor man for your team. You're the guy you're just the customer facing version of your team. Is that your secret sauce, or what do you, or is there something else that I'm missing?
It's part of it. It didn't start that way. It was very much bootstraps beginning, and it does cost more. There's no question about it. You got a marketing person who does this. You got somebody else who does that. I've got a person, Nisa, on my team who does all the calendaring.
Nisa,
and so
sorry.
it's a very common way to pronounce her name, but it is now all I need to do to Debbie's point is get to know the guests beforehand, get myself ready for the conversation, have the conversation, hit a couple of buttons, and I'm done. Everybody else does everything else. And so then I think it keeps people who are in this particular form of communication going because you've removed all of the things that are not as fun. So if you really love podcasting, delegate everything else as much as you possibly can. To Debbie's point, I think the second one is I 100% agree with you. Be in the moment, listen to your guests, ask good questions. I can't tell you how many times that people said, that was an incredible question. And just because, to Debbie's point, I was listening and paying attention. And then I think a little thing that now we're trying, which I think is going to become a secret sauce, is don't let the brokers fill out the application form. Let the guest fill it out. Make it a condition. Because these people are filling out stuff. It doesn't seem to be, it's almost like AI could be filling it out. It's not the guest itself. And so if the guest is going to fill out the application, they're the ones who are also going to like and friend you, and they're the ones who are going to be on LinkedIn and commenting on the show when it goes live, not the broker. The broker got their paycheck once the show was done, right? They're done. So that would be the third thing.
Hey, Doug,
can I
just jump in? Because pearls of wisdom, those things, everything Dean and Debbie said, fantastic. Listening's my favorite thing. So because this is to a broad range of podcasters that are be listening and learning, I actually don't want to know about my guest beforehand. I'll check LinkedIn probably 5 minutes before, because the conversation when I go meet people, because I meet a lot of people on the street. So, here, this event, that event, and I don't know anything about it. So my skill is sort of developed in that. I like that authentic discussion. So I treat it almost the same way. That doesn't mean I won't pick out a nugget or something interesting or funny in a LinkedIn post just to check it out before I start. But again, everybody's strategy and style is going to be completely different. So that's really important for your community to understand.
Good
The
point.
other two things that were huge gold for me is one is I always mention people on the podcast, and we have our team reach out to those people afterwards. Say, hey, just to let you know, you were on Light Bulb Moments, you were, talked about, or we'll mention an episode from the past with the numbers so people can go look for it if they find that interesting. Last thing that's really, really cool.
Wait, before you go on to that last thing, can I tell you how impactful that is? I get an email in my inbox once a week, once a month, whatever it is, however often that Phil mentions me on his podcast.
A lot.
You've been mentioned in this week's episode. Now, I don't know the trick behind that, but maybe you could share with our audience that trick before you get to your last one. Because when I get that email, what does that make me want to do? Listen to the episode.
Yeah.
So now I'm listening for, hey, where does Phil mention me in the podcast?
That's right.
And it's in there. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm not willing to share that with you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't know how the hell I do that. Valerie does it.
No. What I do is I take copious notes during the podcast sometimes just to mark things like that.
Right.
So then I give it to and it's like a double sort of protection is that we have our marketing team will scan the episode for names and they'll listen to it just for content. And then that'll be just part of our process that goes into it.
So good.
It's so important because people love it. People love when they're mentioned, especially if you mention them in such a positive way. They remember that, for future episodes. So, but yeah, Doug, you're like the top mention. Fretson's a close second, I think. So.
Well, thanks. I get an email every couple of weeks. It's been every week recently, and I'm like, Phil mentioned me again. I didn't listen the last week. I was busy last week working on one of my trucks, but I took to heart that I was mentioned. I send Valerie an email back. Thanks for sending that email.
You said stop. Please stop. I can't.
No,
can't
stop
keep
talking
up.
about me on the show. What was that other point that you had? You were going to make one more point. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. So the what I've noticed is that AI follows things, and I always test AI and say, hey, what do you think about what we're doing here? Here's a recent episode. What do you think? And what I found out is this is sort of how I learned to be a litigator in my earlier years. For 28 years I litigated, was I sort of kept knowledge, and I could layer in my head the structure of how people talk about things. So I wrap at the end with my 10 or 12 light bulb moments that I heard on the podcast. And that really is, powerful in the AI and internet world. So
yeah, got it. Yeah, and you guys do such a great job using AI as a tool. If those in our podcasting space aren't using AI to the nth degree, whether it's helping you write an intro that sounds like you, or helping you supply our show notes writers some good information that you think is insider info that you're hearing on the podcast, even behind the scenes. That's very cool. So, and you do a great job with that, Phil, and your entire team does too. Let's take a look at, maybe as we come closer to the end of our episode here. This hour has gone by so fast, and I appreciate you guys. I hope we can do this or something like this again. What is something that you hope in maybe the next 90 days, 6 months, maybe a year? It's so hard to look at a year in podcasting because things change so rapidly. But what do you hope to still accomplish from your podcast that you haven't had a chance to? And what are you really focused on in the next 60, 90, 6 months, whatever? Debbie, I'll ask you first, if that's okay.
Well, I think my biggest goal next is monetizing. And so I've kind of stepped into having my first sponsor. So I'm real excited about that. We're starting this month.
That is awesome. And Phil, you just got your first sponsor too within the last month or two. And that is excellent. Debbie, tell me more.
About the sponsorship?
You go in. I don't want to get too much into the dollars and cents, because it's going to mean different things to different people. But I'm happy to you share whatever you feel compelled to share.
Well, yeah, just be open and be creative with the different sponsors that you can have on your podcast. Don't get narrow-minded as to how it should be. Be open-minded, because there's some unique opportunities out there. Just be open about that. And my other goal is always to, gain more coaching clients, because that's the other thing. I always try to open up, I'm also the life transition coach, to reach out, because, people are hurting. And so some of my episodes tap into that. So I want to do better at leaning into my ability to come alongside and help.
And just to share, just to add on to the sentence that you had right before, you were talking about the coaching side of things and sponsorship. For those in our community, know that sponsorship doesn't necessarily just mean I'm going to run a commercial on my show. It could mean you're going to throw out an email campaign to promote that person. You're going to post on social media. You're going to do a live LinkedIn or a live Facebook stream with your guest. It's not just about, let me trade your dollars for an ad on my show. Full brand sponsorship is really a way to set yourself apart. And when you have a smaller audience, an audience of 50 or 100 or 150, and they might say, well, you only have 150 people listening to your show. Yeah, but I have a list of 1,000 people that are on my email list. And yes, I have a social media following of 1,500. And now all of a sudden you don't have 150 listeners. You have 1,000 or 1,500 total people that you're processing to. So yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I did not know you recently gotten a sponsor, and that's very, very cool. All right, Dean, how about with you?
A new one is now sponsorship. Thanks, Debbie, for the inspiration. That was great. We haven't ever done that. We need to do that. 2 would be really promoting the book, but the book would also be promoting public speaking, getting more paid gigs for that. So those are the things we're working on.
All right, cool. And Phil, how about with you?
Due to contract requirements, I have to mention my podcast sponsor on every episode, Horton's Home Lighting. I'm just kidding.
No, so that's good. He's now a sponsor of our show now.
Yeah. Congratulations. So here's the cool thing that I'm looking at is like, and we talked about this the other day, Doug, and thank you again for all the access you give me to you. It's wonderful. It sounds like Debbie and Dean are having the same relationship with you in that regard. But as you know, my Bright community is hugely important to me. That's the name that we've given our community, the Bright community. And we're doing an offshoot here strictly related to Bright and the community and how we can grow that and make it more interactive. We recently released the Spark line where people can call in and just talk and say a light bulb moment or interact with us and say, hey, this would be a great episode. Someone I just recently met in New York City said she listened to the podcast, Madeline Chan, and she says, hey, I really would love to hear, I listen to your episodes. I'd love to hear about the sandwich generation. So now the goal is to have these people interact and grow my podcast and grow the podcast for the Bright community from what they want, not just what I want.
Excellent. Well, Debbie, Dean, Phil, this has been amazing. I want to give you guys the chance to add a final sentence or two onto the end of this, give you guys the final word, and then we will wrap up. So any of you share anything that I should have been asked you that I didn't ask you in the very beginning, or maybe something that you want to share that you haven't had a chance to share right here. Debbie, Phil? Dean?
Real quick, I would say also think about having your podcast on YouTube, because it's a great way to build people who love visual versus audio. It's a great way to build your audience. And if you're really considering podcasting, go for it. It's the hottest thing that's out there right now. So come on, jump in, be a part of the team.
Excellent. Thank you, Debbie. And thanks for being here on the show. I really appreciate you and your support over the last 5-6 years. Dean, how about with you?
I'll just add one other thing that we didn't really talk about, which is technology. Certainly you can do all of this on Zoom, which we did for years. We now moved into Riverside, and Riverside has so many more bells and whistles that make it easy to do this. The automation, all this stuff, I don't even do it, but consider Riverside.
Got it. Good word. All right. And Phil, how about with you?
Yeah, just don't try to do this yourself. We have a platform through Turnkey. I mean, I'll never, ever, ever release that relationship. Not only because of what the great things they do on the production side, but emotionally and the connection and the great guests that Doug has sent our way. I mean, it's Turnkey. That's a great name. It's what it should be. And, I owe everything to Doug and his team. So that's real 100%. Important.
Thanks.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. It's been a great journey. We will continue on, and we'll watch you guys progress from the top 5 to and 1.5%. We'll watch you guys progress to the top 0.5 to the 0.25 and until you get to Joe Rogan status. So
there you go.
Forward to that. Woo. For those in our listening community, thanks for tuning in to the Turnkey Podcast. It's also up here on Nice Guys on Business. Thanks for being here. Until next time.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. They have listeners in other countries? I didn't think anyone was listening outside of their house. Except maybe their moms.